We're still a little bit in mourning over here, but we're going to get right back to work exactly the way Charlie Kirk would have expected us to, the way Charlie Kirk would have, because he was all about the fight and all about work. And to that end, we've got breaking news like just mere minutes ago, the FBI releasing a photograph of a person of interest in the midst of this manhunt for the assassin of Charlie Kirk. We're going to show that information. We're going to give you news from President Trump and other late breaking information, including potentially some very intriguing information about the weapon and bullets used in this horrific crime. That's coming up in just a second. Plus, we got to have a conversation, you and I. We got to talk about how we got here as a nation and as a culture, and what do we do from here? Grief is a very, very destructive thing, but it can also be a constructive and inspiring thing. I've been there in a very similar situation, and I want to share my thoughts and hopefully maybe help you pick up the pieces and pick up Charlie's torch. We're going to have that conversation. Plus, sadly, but expectedly, the worst of how the legacy corporate left-wing media and their pals in the Democrat Party slimed the memory of Charlie Kirk while he was still fighting for his life. All that and a whole lot more coming up right now. I'm glad you're back with us. We need to stick together through times like this. So thank you for watching. We're brought to you by The Lion. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. New to the program, thank you for checking us out. Give us a like if you don't mind, because I promise you're going to like what you see today, and subscribe if you're so inclined. Also, we've really enjoyed hearing your comments, reading your comments down below about how you first learned about our show. We're cataloging all of this and compiling it for our own marketing purposes. It really does help. So I appreciate you sharing your stories. Thank you for that. If you care about staying sharp and informed, make The Lion part of your daily routine. Published by the Herzog Foundation, The Lion covers the headlines that matter, from politics and policy to culture and faith, all through a common sense, values-driven lens. It's the kind of journalism that goes beyond the surface, offering the context and clarity today's news demands. Whether you're tracking big national stories or want to know what's happening in schools, state houses, and communities across the country, The Lion delivers smart, well-sourced reporting that you're not going to find anywhere else. Visit readlion.com, and while you're there, sign up for The Lion's daily and weekly newsletters. That's readlion.com, news that informs and respects your worldview. Well, yesterday, after shots rang out at the Utah Valley University, we jumped on a live stream and we held really a virtual prayer vigil as we hoped against hope that somehow God's hand would play into a miracle and save Charlie Kirk's life. About an hour after we went off the air here, we all learned the news that Charlie Kirk had passed away. None of us will be the same after the events of September 10th, but we need to move forward and keep Charlie's memory alive. And to that end, we've got a lot to discuss, including the latest news about the manhunt for this assassin. And you're going to hear a stunning announcement from President Trump and how he plans to honor Charlie's memory and Charlie's life work. First, though, to the breaking news, the FBI Bureau in Salt Lake City now asking the public to help identify this person of interest, as they're saying, in connection with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You see the phone number 1-800-CALL-FBI. If any of you anywhere watching right now can bring any information about this individual that the FBI is seeking right now, please call that number. These are the two photographs they have. Again, not a suspect, not anybody who's being accused or charged with anything at this time. They are labeling this individual a person of interest. But as we've seen investigations like this play out in recent years, oftentimes when they present a person of interest and photographs such as this, they've got a good hunch of where this person might lead them. So once again, let's blow it up as big as we can on screen, Kevin, if you don't mind. This is the person of interest that the FBI just moments ago released to the public. And hopefully we can get more information about this individual and potentially track them down. and finally bring justice to this horrific crime. Earlier today, President Trump was at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., taking part in the 24th anniversary memorial of the September 11th attacks. And while giving his remarks, he made an announcement about Charlie Kirk. Take a look.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. Before we begin, let me express the horror and grief so many Americans at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd, very, very big. Thank you, my fellow Americans. 84 years ago.
All right, that is the big announcement. So that Charlie Kirk will be awarded posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And if I could just lend my own humble voice and opinion to this matter, Mr. President, or anyone at the White House who might be watching or listening, how about the Kennedy Center? How about we open this up to the public? Usually the Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded in a East Wing ceremony in the East Room at the White House with just invited guests. How about we open this up to the public? How about we open this up to the heads of all the Turning Point USA chapters around the country and do this at the Kennedy Center, or maybe even bigger, it may be an arena of some sort. I think this would be great. I think Charlie would love the fact that young people from all around the country could come and participate in that moment as well. Either way, incredibly grateful to hear the president make that announcement. We're going to hear from Secretary Marco Rubio in a second, but if you're just joining our stream, I want to point out this is the photograph that was just released by the FBI in Salt Lake City of a person of interest that they are seeking information about, or even better, the whereabouts of this individual. That's the person of interest and the photos. And we'll keep reminding you as the program develops today. All right, Secretary of State Marco, and understand the emotion that you're seeing from these elected officials. This is the president, the vice president, Secretary of State. Not only did they interact with Charlie as a media figure, not only did they interact with him as a powerful voice and organizer, one of the greatest political organizers of our lifetimes in the conservative movement, but they knew him personally. I was struck by how many people texted me and reached out to me over the course of the last 20 hours, I guess, feeling, sensing, expressing that they felt like they had lost a friend. And you did. Even if you had never met Charlie, there was no pretense about him. What you saw on television or on his streams or in his podcast, what you saw is who Charlie was. He didn't put on some act or anything. That's who he was. On stage, off stage, behind the scenes, under the lights, that was him. And these guys, the president and now here Secretary Rubio, they knew him personally. They traveled with him. They dined with him. They felt a brotherhood with him.
Well, Charlie's someone I've gotten to know personally, and it was just heartbreaking to see. Both stunning and outrageous at the same time. Obviously, I have confidence in our investigators are on the ground. The FBI is the best investigative unit in the world. I spoke to the governor numerous times yesterday in the midst of this, and they're also involved with their state police there. And so I think now we just need to let the investigators do their work. And we know two things for certain, and that is that a great young man is dead and the family's been shattered, and that there's no place for this in America. We all know that. All the words are out there. This is true, not just outrageous. It's
I don't remember ever seeing Marco Rubio's eyes look like that. He looks absolutely shaken and devastated by this. President Trump, on his way to the Pentagon, was asked about the manhunt that was underway.
But do the best we can.
Anything on the investigation or anything on the latest that you've heard from the FBI or Cash Patel?
They've reported to me so far. pretty much what you're seeing in the news is what it is. They have a virtual manhunt out there, so we'll see what happens. But we hope we get them.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, first, let's go.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Now let's get to some other developing items in terms of the investigation into who's responsible for this horrific abomination on our society. Stephen Crowder, who has his own investigative unit and sources everywhere. Don't forget, Stephen was the first one to break the manifesto of the transgender Christian school murderer in Nashville last year. He has a source at the ATF who has delivered information to him, and I'll just read it off to you. And by the way, we have more information that's connected to this. It's been confirmed by a couple of news outlets, but at the same time, we've also been told by people close to the investigation that there's more to this bit of information than has been released. So we don't want anybody to sort of take this and just run with it. We're being cautious about this information as well, but it has been confirmed by multiple outlets. And so we wanted to share it with you. Here's Crowder's announcement from earlier today. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:24, conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot and killed Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Mr. Kirk was speaking at the university as part of the American Comeback Tour. Multiple Salt Lake City 1 and 3 agents responded immediately. Suspect fired one shot from an elevated position on a rooftop in an adjacent building on the campus, and surveillance video shows the suspect jumping off and fleeing the area on foot. ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported Mauser 3006 caliber bolt action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds at the top fed magazine. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted, and ATF Salt Lake City is working leads generated by the trace. The firearm and ammunition have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and fingerprint impressions. More on that in a minute, because since this report, we had a press announcement from the FBI in Salt Lake City just a little after 9 a.m. We'll share that with you in a second. Upon completion of forensics, the firearm will be disassembled for additional importer information. Multiple people of interest having contacted or detained because of eyewitness testimony and review of video footage. The primary suspect is yet to be identified. ATF is assisting the investigation with multiple other federal, state, and local partners, and the case is co-led by the FBI and Utah SBI, that's the State Bureau of Investigation. I just want to remind you once again, as we will continue, this is the person of interest, the photograph of the person of interest that the FBI has released, and they're asking for any information that you might have on this individual. This is the photograph that they have released right now. Can't quite make out. There's some sort of design on the shirt that has an American flag, but then there's something else going on that design. Not sure what it could be. And again, if you have any information, you want to dial 1-800-CALL-FBI. This is a person of interest in connection to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. All right, so just about 35 to 45 minutes after the breaking story from Stephen Crowder at the Louder with Crowder show, the Wall Street Journal then confirmed this report. Wall Street Journal, ammunition in Kirk shooting engraved with transgender anti-fascist ideology, according to sources. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk died after being shot. That's the Wall Street Journal confirming it. Then, shortly after the Wall Street Journal confirmed that information, again, I want to caution you because we have people close to the investigation over here at Town Hall Media, and we've been told, not specifically, but that there may be more to this reported story than has already been released. And so we're suggesting caution right now on this aspect of the story. But shortly after the Wall Street Journal confirmed it, CNN then confirmed it. But get this, CNN can't help themselves from being CNN. Here's their headline. Federal officials probe rifle and ammo scrawled with cultural phrases after Charlie Kirk killing. A range of phrases related to cultural issues were found scrawled on a rifle and ammunition found in the woods near the conservative activist Charlie Kirk was murdered. I mean, I guess that's factual, but the other two news outlets had more specific information about what those cultural messages were, and one certainly suspects that CNN had that information too, yet they choose to go with a euphemism rather than the actual, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Truth. If in fact that story is valid. All right, let's get to the 9/10 press briefing that local law enforcement and FBI gave in Salt Lake City. They've got some information here. They do confirm quite a bit of the Crowder Wall Street Journal report, but not all of the details, and sadly, most specifically, not about the messages scrawled on the ammunition. I'm suspecting that they're holding that bit of information out until they move further with their investigation. But here's a little bit from that press briefing about 3 hours ago.
We have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled.
All right, so that matches what that original leak from an anonymous source at the ATF gave to Steven Crowder. All right, a little bit more from this briefing.
That individual appears to be of college age. We are confident in our abilities to track that individual. If we're unsuccessful in identifying them immediately, we will reach out for the public's help and the media's help in pushing those photos.
All right, so that was 3 hours ago when they said that they have identified an individual, a person of interest. Some people are referring to this as a suspect. Law enforcement has not used that word yet. And at that time, they said that they believed the person was college age. We'll show you the photograph that they've released in just a moment that he was alluding to. In the meantime, they also revealed that they were able to put together what the person of interest or the suspect's movements were after tracking security camera footage of a figure running on the rooftop from where the shots were fired and then into a wooded area. Here, take a look.
We were able to track the movements of the shooter. Starting at 11:52 a.m., the subject arrived on campus, shortly away from campus. We have tracked his movements onto the campus, through the stairwells, up to the roof, across the roof to a shooting location. After the shooting, we were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building, jumped off of the building, and fled off of the campus and into a neighborhood. Our investigators have worked through those neighborhoods, contacting anybody they can with doorbell cameras, witnesses, and have thoroughly worked through those communities, trying to identify any leads. We do have good video footage of this individual. We are not going to release that at this time. We are working through some technologies and some ways to identify this individual. If we are unsuccessful, we will reach out to you as the media and we will push that publicly to help us identify them. But we are confident in our abilities right now, and we would like to move forward in a manner that keeps everyone safe and moves this process appropriately.
All right, so that, as you just heard the word confident, and seem pretty up on the idea that they are hot on this individual's trail and they are closing in. Once again, that was 3 hours ago. Just before we went on the air at noon Eastern time, they did in fact release these photographs that I want to share with you one more time before we move on to our next subject. But again, these are the individuals that they are now claiming is a person of interest that they believe is of college age and is connected to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And they're asking for any information that you might be able to give to help either identify this individual or even better, where his current location might be. All right. And before we move on to the next portion of this, I do want to wrap things up as we've heard from the president and the Secretary of State. A statement was put out by J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, who probably had a closer relationship with Charlie Kirk than anyone in the administration, frankly. And this is his eulogy that he's posted on the X platform, and I wanted to share it with you. A while ago, probably in 2017, I appeared on Tucker Carlson's Fox show to talk about God knows what. Afterwards, a name I barely knew sent me a DM on Twitter and told me I did a great job. It was Charlie Kirk. And that moment of kindness began a friendship that lasted until today. Charlie was fascinated by ideas and always willing to learn and change his mind. Like me, he was skeptical of Donald Trump in 2016. Like me, he came to see President Trump as the only figure capable of moving American politics away from the globalism that had dominated for our entire lives. When others were right, he learned from them. When he was right, as he usually was, he was generous. With Charlie, the attitude was never, "I told you so," but welcome. Charlie was one of the first people I called when I thought about running for Senate in early 2021. I was interested but skeptical there was a pathway. We talked through everything from the strategy to the fundraising to the grassroots of the movement he knew so well. He introduced me to some of the people who would run my campaign and also to Donald Trump Jr. Like his dad, he's misunderstood. He's extremely smart and very much on our wavelength. Don took a call from me because Charlie asked him to. Long before I ever committed, even in my mind, to running, Charlie had me speak to his donors at a TPUSA event. He walked me around the room and introduced me. He gave me honest feedback on my remarks. He had no reason to do this, no expectation that I'd go anywhere. I was polling at that point well below 5%. He did it because we were friends and because he was a good man. When I became the vice presidential nominee, something Charlie advocated for both in public and private, Charlie was there for me. I was so glad to be part of the president's team, but candidly surprised by the effect it had on our family. Our kids, especially our oldest, struggled with the attention and the constant presence of the protective detail. I felt this acute sense of guilt that I had conscripted my kids into this life without getting their permission. And Charlie was constantly calling and texting, checking on our family, and offering guidance and prayers. Some of our most successful events were organized not by the campaign, but by TPUSA. He wasn't just a thinker, he was a doer, turning big ideas into bigger events with thousands of activists. And after every event, he would give me a big hug, tell me he was praying for me, and ask me what he could do. You could focus on Wisconsin, he'd tell me. Arizona's in the bag. And it was. Charlie genuinely believed in and loved Jesus Christ. He had a profound faith. We used to argue about Catholicism and Protestantism and who was right about minor doctrinal questions. Because he loved God, he wanted to understand him. Someone also pointed out that Charlie died doing what he loved, discussing ideas. He would go into these hostile crowds and answer their questions. If it was a friendly crowd and a progressive asked a question to jeers from the audience, he'd encourage his fans to calm down and let everyone speak. He exemplified a foundational virtue of our republic, the willingness to speak openly and debate ideas. Charlie had an uncanny ability to know when to push the envelope and when to be more conventional. I've seen people attack him for years for being wrong on this or that issue publicly, never realizing that privately he was working to broaden the scope of acceptable debate. He was a great family man. I was talking to President Trump in the Oval Office today, and he said, "I know he was a very good friend of yours." I nodded silently, and President Trump observed that Charlie really loved his family. The president was right. Charlie was so proud of Erica and the two kids. He was so happy to be a father, and he felt such gratitude for having found a woman of God with whom he could build a family. Charlie Kirk was a true friend, the kind of guy you could say something to and know it would always stay with him. I'm on more than a few group chats with Charlie and people he introduced me to over the years. We celebrate weddings and babies, bust each other's chops, and mourn the loss of loved ones. We talk about politics and policy and sports and life. These group chats include people at the very highest level of our government. They trusted him, loved him, and knew he'd always have their backs. And because he was a true friend, you could instinctively trust the people Charlie introduced you to. So much of the success we've had in this administration traces directly to Charlie's ability to organize and convene. He didn't just help us win in 2024, he helped us staff the entire government. I was in a meeting in the West Wing when those group chats started lighting up with people telling Charlie they were praying for him, and that's how I learned the news that my friend had been shot. I prayed a lot over the next hour, as first good news and then bad trickled in. God didn't answer those prayers, and that's okay. He had other plans. And now that Charlie is in heaven, I'll ask him to talk to the big man directly on behalf of his family, his friends, and the country he loves so dearly. You ran a good race, my friend. We've got it from here. Those are the words of Vice President J.D. Vance, penned last night just before midnight. That's the latest news on the hunt for Charlie Kirk's assassin. If anything develops in the rest of our show, we've got another 40 minutes plus for you with more information and our personal conversation we're going to have about Charlie and where we go from here. And also the worst of the liberal reaction on media. If anything at all develops during this program, we will break in and tell you exactly what you need to know. So stay with us. We've got a whole lot more here. But first, if you care about the direction of this country, you need to be reading The Lion. Published by the Herzog Foundation, the national leader in Christian education, The Lion is an award-winning news site delivering sharp, timely reporting on what's really happening in America's schools, culture, and government. It's the kind of journalism that cuts through the noise and gives you the full picture, especially when it comes to the growing movement toward Christ-centered education. But The Lion goes beyond classrooms. It covers parenting, faith, freedom, and the cultural battles shaping our future. Just like its namesake, The Lion embodies strength and courage, standing firm in a landscape where too many have surrendered our children's future to the left's ideology. Visit readlion.com and sign up for the daily or weekly newsletter so you never miss a headline. That's readlion.com. Clarity, courage, and news that keeps you informed and equipped. If I have trouble getting through the show today, now and again, I hope that you'll extend me a little bit of grace, because this ain't easy. I promise it ain't easy at all. We lost a very important member of our civilization yesterday. Charlie Kirk was an important voice, an important organizer politically, an important communicator. He was also just a great guy. And he touched so many people's lives. And so many of us woke up this morning wondering, now what do I do? Where do we go from here? What now? And I want you to know that I understand exactly what you're feeling. In fact, in a strange way, it was deja vu for me this morning when I woke up, because it was just about 13 years ago when my life was forever changed by the death of another giant, another media figure, another political activist, cut down way too soon. He was my friend and my mentor. He brought me into this world. His name was Andrew Breitbart. And the similarities between losing Andrew in the middle of our political fight and our political revolution back in 2012 and losing Charlie Kirk yesterday, it can't be denied. The circumstances of their deaths obviously are very different, but the impact on all of us, it's incredible how close these circumstances are, how everything that I heard from people who knew Charlie and were friends of Charlie and worked with Charlie yesterday echo exactly what so many of us thought the day we lost Andrew Breitbart. And so I feel like I can share a little bit about where we go from here, because we were all staring at each other. Dana Loesch and Ben Shapiro and John Nolte and Larry Solov and Alex Marlowe and Mike Flynn. We didn't know what to do. Who's going to replace Andrew? We kept saying. Nobody can replace Andrew. And we were right. Nobody could replace Andrew. And nobody can replace Charlie. Except somebody did replace Andrew eventually. And someone will replace Charlie. I'll explain that in a second. But first, let's be clear here. We're together right now for a reason. Some people are saying that this is a galvanizing moment, that this is a pivot point, that we're at a crossroads. I think it's not too corny to say that this could be a turning point for our country in a lot of ways. Evil yesterday tried to silence one of our brightest voices, and we know that evil will not win the day. The great thing about Charlie is that his voice continues to resonate everywhere right now. In fact, his voice is probably louder today than it was before that shot rang out in Utah. And that's how Charlie wins. That's how we all win at the end of the day. To be able to pick up the pieces and move forward, we have to first identify exactly what Charlie's legacy is, what his passion was. It wasn't just for a movement, although that was a big part of it, but it was for Americans, for a next generation of Americans to understand what Charlie stood for. All you have to do is look at one of the videos where he interacts with a teenager, and you know exactly what made Charlie tick and what motivated him to get up every day and work his ass off like he did. When Charlie was a high school senior, he wanted to go to the United States Military Academy at West Point. Not an easy place to get into. And like thousands of young Americans, he did not get that commission. What was Charlie's plan B? Charlie was Charlie's plan B. He decided to forego higher education, and instead he bet on himself. He started Turning Point USA with the idea that he could make a difference based on everything that he had already learned and everything he knew and everything he wanted to learn as he moved forward in life. And, well, I think the record suggests that he was right about that. It was a pretty safe bet. You know how these political movements go. When a leader falls, the movement has to go on. The movement must rise and grow stronger and bigger. That's the conservative tradition in America. Someone has to pick up that flag, and we follow that next person. And you have to understand that Charlie kind of knew that this could very well happen. I want to point out some of the things that Charlie wrote about very recently after the assassination of Donald Trump. Take a look at this post of his. Assassination culture is spreading on the left. 48% of liberals say it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk. 55% said the same about Donald Trump. In California, activists are naming ballot measures after Luigi Mangione, the assassin of the CEO of the health insurance company. The left is being whipped into a violent frenzy. Any setback, whether losing an election or losing a court case, justifies a maximally violent response. This is the national outgrowth of left-wing protest culture, tolerating violence and mayhem for years on end. The cowardice of local prosecutors and school officials have turned the left into a ticking time bomb. And as usual, Charlie brought the receipts. Here's the poll that he was referring to. Justification for murder of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. If you're left of center, 48.6% said it was at least partially justified to assassinate Donald Trump or Elon Musk. Now, before I go to any further in painting with broad strokes about the left in this country, I was looking for some glimmer of optimism. I was looking for somebody to give some credit to. And thankfully, I found someone on the left that deserves some credit. In fact, it came from the unlikely pages of the New York Times this morning. Ezra Klein, a doctrinaire, progressive, liberal, Obama leftist, wrote this op-ed this morning titled "Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way." And I want to make sure that he gets the credit he deserves for writing these words. You can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is still true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him. He was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. When the left thought its hold on the hearts and minds of college students was nearly absolute, Kirk showed up again and again to break it. Slowly, then all at once, he did. College-age voters shifted sharply right in the 2024 election. I want to pause there and back that up with receipts, as Charlie would have. The numbers are astounding. In 2023, college-aged men 18 to 29 were polled and asked about their party affiliation. Just 2 years ago, men 18 to 29 identified as Democrat. by a factor of plus 26. Fast forward to just 1 month ago. Those men, 18 to 29, asked the same question about their party affiliation, now identify as Republicans, as a factor of plus 18. That is a 44-point swing amongst men aged 18 to 29 in party affiliation. That is Charlie Kirk. And that's his legacy. And that's astounding. And it's because Charlie Kirk showed up every day, undaunted, with a smile on his face, took all comers, especially those that disagreed with him, and he talked with them. And he presented his ideas, and he presented facts to back up his ideas. You need to learn these lessons because it needs to be replicated by tens, hundreds, and thousands across this nation. That's how Charlie wins. That's how we all win, because it's what Charlie cared about the most. And Charlie understood, and this is important for you to understand, that when he was engaged one-on-one with someone who was mean-spirited, vitriolic, nasty, insulting, despicable, and he kept that smile on his face and just took all of the abuse, he knew that the point of doing that was not to try to change the mind or change the behavior of the person who was being so abominable to him. The point was to affect all of the people who were watching that exchange. How Charlie conducted himself when confronted by the evil, despicable people who wanted to ruin him, how he conducted himself and engaged with them is what drew people to him. Because inside we all know, we know who's right and who's wrong in a confrontation like that. And we can take that lessons. We can take that lesson when we engage with people who disagree with us, whether it's in our own comment section or whether it's on your social media, Facebook or Instagram page, or in your workplace with the crazy liberal in the cubicle down the hall, or at your Sunday dinner with your even crazier brother-in-law. How you comport yourself and present your ideas is not important about changing the mind of the person you disagree with. It's about all of the people at your workplace, in your family, and watching the comment section. That's who gets affected by this. And Charlie knew that. And that's where these numbers come from. Back to Ezra Klein real fast. That was not all Kirk's doing, but he was central in laying the groundwork for it. I did not know Kirk, and I'm not the right person to eulogize him, but I envied what he built. A taste for disagreement is a virtue in a democracy. Liberalism could use more of his moxie and fearlessness. In the inaugural episode of his podcast, Governor Gavin Newsom of California hosted Kirk, admitting that his son was a huge fan. What a testament to Kirk's project. Sure, I'll go with that. But I'll also say this. The left often looks at people like Charlie Kirk and what they built, and they wonder, why won't we have our own Charlie Kirk? Where's our Joe Rogan? Where's our this or that, right? Where's our Rush Limbaugh? Where's our talk radio? Where's our Andrew Breitbart? And they never understand that they don't have these figures because they don't need them. They've got all of the networks. They've got all of the publications. They've got all of academia. They've got all of the universities. They've got the music industry. They've got Hollywood. They've got the deep state in Washington, D.C. So you don't need these trailblazers to cut against the grain and deliver an alternative message, because you're the dominant message, you see. That's why the left doesn't have a Charlie Kirk. It's not necessary. But for us, we need our Charlie Kirks. We need our Andrew Breitbarts. We need our Rush Limbaughs. We're nowhere without them. And when we lose them, it's incumbent on all of us to fill that space. I've heard a lot about equivocation today. I've heard a lot of people say, well, yeah, both sides. We need to cut down the rhetoric on both sides. You know, both sides this and both sides that. And They point to things like, well, Paul Pelosi got attacked by a madman with a hammer. Or, hey, what about January 6th? Both sides. This isn't a both sides issue. This isn't even close. At no point in recent history has somebody been concerned about identifying as a active member of the Democrat Party or of the progressive left at their workplace or on a college campus. At no time does somebody from the progressive left have to be concerned about being drummed out of society if they wear a shirt or a hat that identifies themselves with the President of the United States. Try walking just a few feet in our shoes so that you can see what it's like before you start both sidesing us. And yes, what happened to Paul Pelosi is terrible, but it wasn't politically motivated. And Paul Pelosi has injuries from his attack. We have a corpse. We are not the same. Stop pretending that we are. So what can you do? Well, you can do what Charlie did. Yes, you can. Don't tell me you can't. He spoke boldly on campuses because that's where other people were afraid to go. That's why he went there. And understand that he was first met with hostility and a very small minority of people who agreed with him, but a huge swath of people who hated him. But over a small handful of years, those numbers were reversed. Why? Well, partly because Charlie showed up and let all of those other conservatives who were there all the time know that they could come out and they could join him. Also, because he actually did convince people and convert people, because for the first time on a college campus, for the first time, a 20-year-old student actually heard an alternative approach to economics and cultural issues and national defense and politics. They had never heard it before. And it made sense. He also never watered down his principles just so he could have approval. He stood for what he believed in. And there's something very attractive and intoxicating about that. We can all learn from that. Believe what you believe and tell us what you believe. Because when you hem and haw and try to water it down, well, we can smell that stink a mile away. He built Turning Point USA not into a monument for himself, which, by the way, if you think about it, is extraordinary. A 19-year-old boy, yes, he was a boy, building this organization and not naming it after himself, not creating it so that he could live the good life and then ride off into the sunset in his Maserati and smoke cigarettes. He didn't have to keep working. He didn't have to be at that college campus yesterday. But Turning Point USA wasn't about Charlie Kirk. It wasn't about his lifestyle. Sorry, we're having some power issues here. It wasn't about building a wealthy life for himself. It was about saving our country. And when you have your focus on ideals and on principles and on goals that are that grand, well, you can work wonders. And that he did. If you look at his speeches and look at his appearances, he always comes back to the basic fundamentals: limited government, liberty. He died wearing a t-shirt that said freedom, faith, family, free markets. He also always resisted the very easy temptation to drift off toward anger. And I'm not saying anger is not important. It's part of this process. And if you're not angry about what happened to Charlie yesterday, there's something wrong with you. You should be angry, but don't be alone in your anger. Don't let your anger fester. Use your anger, as Andrew Breitbart wrote in his book, Righteous Indignation. Your anger is righteous anger for a righteous cause. Focus that energy toward Charlie's positive goals. It's about building a future, not avenging the past. That's what he had wanted, and you know that. Also, find something in your day where you can do what Charlie spent his life doing, equipping young people with facts and knowledge and hope and a positive outlook. That's how you honor Charlie, and that's how you help him complete his mission. It may sound corny, but every conservative voice that rises up today will multiply Charlie's voice that was silenced yesterday. And that's how we do it. So ask yourself every single day, how can you carry forward the mission? Can you do it on your campus or on your kids' campus or on your grandkids' campus? Can you participate at your workplace in having a conversation, in engaging instead of shutting off, in pushing your employer? This is, I'll say it again, a turning point. Why can't you display your political ideas at your workplace in the same way that the other people do? Why doesn't every network have an equal number of Trump supporters and conservative Republicans on the panel as they do the overwhelming number of people who hate Trump? Why do we tolerate that? Why do we stand for that? No more. There are no more excuses for this. We will no longer be marginalized. Don't let yourself be marginalized at your workplace, at your school, or even in your own family. And we as a conservative movement have to rally around unity. We can't be factionalized anymore. I know we all have egos. I know that we're all in competition in one way or another. Charlie had every reason to be like that. He had every reason to feel competitive. He had every reason to be a narcissist. He had every reason to not help people who were in the same game as he was. But dude, Charlie was the opposite. All of my friends, we all had the same conversation over the last 12 hours. We were looking at our DMs. We were looking at our text messages. Charlie was constantly there asking what he could do to help us. I spoke with Governor Scott Walker, who runs Young America's Foundation, who brings conservatives like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, me, Katie Pavlich. He brings us to college campuses, just like Turning Point USA does. They were not in competition. A conservative value and principle is that the rising tide lifts all boats. Charlie personified that. He wanted all of us to succeed. He knew that if this show and this podcast succeeded, his show and his podcast would succeed. We need to embrace that spirit every day. I'm going to commit myself to it. And finally, if you want to honor Charlie Kirk, you need to root all of the things that you do in faith, in morality, the eternal truths of good versus evil, and the fact that good will win the day and that we will overcome evil. If Charlie were here, he would remind us of that. He would remind us that America is still the last best hope on this planet. Charlie's voice from this point forward, yes, has been silenced. Thankfully, everything that he said up until yesterday will still resonate and still be amplified. And even more so, our voices will not be silenced. My wife, Meredith, is a Baptist, so she knows the Bible better than I do, but I'm getting there. We were praying over one verse from Galatians earlier today together. Galatians 6:9, let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. That's Charlie Kirk. When Andrew Breitbart died, everybody said, who would replace Andrew? Who would replace Andrew? How do we go forward from here? By the way, Andrew died just days before the Breitbart News website that you know very well right now launched in its current state. So they seem to be doing pretty good. I remember meeting Matt Drudge at Andrew's funeral. Only time I ever met him face to face. And Matt said, "What are you going to do with the website?" And I said, "Oh, well, we're going forward." He said, "What are you going to call it?" And I said, "Well, we're going to call it Breitbart to honor him. That's the name of the website." And he was surprised at that. He was shocked. Really? I said, "Yeah, we're doing this for Andrew. We're doing this for Susie, his widow. We're doing this for his kids." Who replaced Andrew Breitbart? We all replaced Andrew Breitbart. Not one person could have done it. But Ben Shapiro and his skill set, you better believe he filled in a gap that Andrew left. Dana Lash, same thing. Joel Pollack, same thing. Alex Marlowe, same thing. Andrew Klavan, same thing. Steven Crowder, same thing. These are all people who Greg Gutfeld, same thing. Jesse Waters, these are all people who were, Steve Bannon, all people who were touched by and influenced by and inspired by Andrew Breitbart. We all did our part, and we all filled in that space in our own way. We all replaced Andrew. So who will replace Charlie Kirk? Well, I'll answer it this way. Just a couple of years ago, Charlie and I participated in a panel at CPAC. It was 2022. It was the 10-year anniversary of Andrew Breitbart's death. And we put together a panel of people to sort of honor and remember the legacy of Andrew. And Mercedes Schlapp and Matt Schlapp, who run CPAC, said that we're going to get Charlie Kirk on the panel. And I was like, "Oh, I love Charlie. That's great." But wait, Charlie never knew Andrew. He never worked with him. And Mercedes said, "Talk to Charlie. He'll explain." And I called Charlie because I was moderating the panel. And I said, "Hey, dude, but you're going to do the Breitbart panel?" He goes, "Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing." And I said, "Can you just share with me what you want to talk about and stuff?" Because everyone else on the panel had worked with Andrew. We were going to talk about our experience with him and what we knew about him and all that stuff. And Charlie Kirk said, he said to me, "Yeah, I never met Andrew, but he was so inspirational to me as a teenager in high school. He was amazing what he did. And I was so inspired by his fight. And the day he died, I swore that I was going to pick up that torch. And I was going to do whatever I can do to keep Andrew's memory alive." That was 2012. That was right when Turning Point USA was created. Charlie replaced Andrew Breitbart. And every single one of you right now watching this, listening to this, you all know someone in your life, or maybe that person is you, who will now be inspired by everything Charlie did and everything Charlie stood for, and inspired by that righteous anger that you feel right now because he has been ripped away from us by that abomination, that despicable bullet, and the evil entity that ended Charlie's life. Whoever you are out there, you are Charlie Kirk, and you're going to fill that space. If you care about, how do you go into an ad? Sorry, hang on a second. If you care about staying sharp and informed, make The Lion part of your daily routine. Published by the Herzog Foundation, The Lion covers the headlines that matter, from politics and policy to culture and faith, all through a common sense, values-driven lens. It's the kind of journalism that goes beyond the surface, offering the context and clarity today's news demands. Whether you're tracking big national stories or you want to know what's happening in schools, state houses, and communities across the country, The Lion delivers smart, well-sourced reporting that you're not going to find anywhere else. Visit readlion.com and sign up for their daily and weekly newsletters while you're there so you don't miss a damn thing. Read Lion.com news that informs and respects your worldview. All righty. Yesterday, as we were learning the horrible news about Charlie Kirk, first the fact that he had been shot, and then ultimately the tragic update that he had been murdered, assassinated. Sadly and predictably, the political left in this country, personified by Democrats, elected officials, not some randos on Blue Sky, and members of the legacy media, they brought what we expected them to bring. It's going to outrage you. It's going to enrage you. It's going to mystify you. But in Charlie Kirk's tradition, we want to show it to you so you can turn that anger into something positive, and maybe even actually you can laugh at these pathetic individuals who don't have a clue about what we're all about. Let's start with the House of Representatives. Yeah, I told you, elected officials. As traditional, when a moment like this happens, they had a moment of silence. Speaker Johnson gavelled in a moment of silence for the passing of Charlie Kirk. Then Congresswoman Lorena Boebert, from Colorado, asked for a prayer to be said for the passing of Charlie Kirk, and all hell broke loose. See, Democrats, they got a real problem with prayer.
What purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise? Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. 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 We will join prayer right after this, okay?
The sound you heard were Democrats screaming and booing and objecting to the House of Representatives saying a prayer in acknowledgement of the death of Charlie Kirk. That's who they are. And when they keep reminding you who they are, you better be paying attention. Democrat Seth Moulton appeared on CNN to talk about the political rhetoric leading to violence in this country. And he had a fascinating take on this, considering it was a conservative happy warrior who was lying in blood at the moment he said these words.
Groups that are out there on the internet or maybe even on TV actually calling to up the political violence. We're hearing that a lot from the right now. Democrats across the board are saying we need to come together. We need to turn down the rhetoric. We need to stop this political violence. It's shocking to me that so many Republicans are not doing that, not following the lead of Speaker Johnson, but actually following the lead of Donald Trump, who's just trying to, call out extremist left-wing groups, blame this on Democrats. We heard that from my colleague Nancy Mace before we even know who the shooter is. That's not a way to solve this problem. If the president is serious about stopping political violence, then maybe he should start by rescinding the pardons for all the domestic terrorists who came to the Capitol on January 6th to kill cops, to kill Speaker Pelosi, to kill Vice President Pence. Let's have an honest conversation about the origins of this political violence and why it has risen so dramatically since Donald Trump's first term.
Yeah, read the room, pal. Read the room. You may have a legitimate point, which you don't, but is this really the moment to be delivering that message? Well, as far as CNN is concerned, I suppose it is. Amazing. Meanwhile, over on MSNBC, Katie Tur, is she still employed there, by the way, after this performance yesterday? Listen, I'm a professional broadcaster. I do 4 hours every morning on broadcast radio in Washington, D.C. I've had to cover developing stories as they occur. You don't get a lot of information. You sort of have to fill time by repeating news, repeating information. But then they go into the realm of speculation. It's always a bad path. But what you saw yesterday on MSNBC, what I'm about to show you, it takes the cake. It doesn't get worse than this.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, to emphasize what you just emphasized, we don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea. But
this is, by the way, while we were live streaming yesterday, and there were a lot of questions, we didn't know what was happening. We were praying. We were trying to get as much as we could. But who in the hell on cable news or broadcast news speculates and says, well, you know what it could have been? It could have been one of those Yahoo crazy gun-loving right-wingers shooting their gun off in celebration. This is what they think of you. And then this passes as legitimate commentary on cable news. Katie Tur wasn't done yet, though.
Because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as a justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next.
It's hard to predict the future, but we're MSNBC and I'm Katie Tur, so we're going to go ahead and do that. By the way, this is just, I'm looking at the timestamp here, 12:10 Pacific. So this is less than an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot at this event. And Katie's main focus of conversation is, well, you got to be worried about how Trump will use this to justify something. You know, because he used the rising crime in Washington, D.C. to justify, what is it he did again? Oh, yeah, putting an end to crime in Washington, D.C. That bastard. And she wasn't done. She had more. Katie, how does a network executive say, could we get somebody else up there except for Katie Tur? Certainly we've got somebody other than Katie Tur. I think Katie needs a timeout. But no, this is what they wanted to present to their viewers.
And the aftermath of this shooting, you could see people running away pretty quickly, as you would imagine they would do at gunshots. The FBI director, Kash Patel, has weighed in on this. He just tweeted the following: "We're closely monitoring reports of the tragic shooting involving Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. Our thoughts are with Charlie, his loved ones, and everyone affected. Agents will be on the scene quickly, and the FBI stands in full support of the ongoing response and the investigation." Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign. And he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money. And really he has become, especially among younger people, right, one of the biggest voices that's on the right now.
All right, I want you to hear what just happened, because it's the perfect tell. And frankly, again, I think Charlie would actually find this amazing, what was just said here, and frankly wear it as a badge of honor. Charlie, I'm doing this for you, brother. Katie Tur says that he's a divisive figure, right? Without any evidence, without actually showing. Here's the thing. Here, let me outplay their game. Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat nominee for mayor in New York City, is a divisive figure. Let me explain why. He embraces Marxism, which is an evil political ideology that has been rejected by free people for centuries now, because every time Marxism is implemented, people lose their freedoms and their rights, and they end up being slaughtered either by famines because of the central government control of agriculture or other industries, or because the military turns their guns, the government's guns, against the people. It happened in Mao's China. It happened in Lenin and Stalin's Soviet Union. It happened in Fidel Castro's Cuba. It happened in Venezuela. On and on and on. That's what Marxism does. That's why Zohran Mamdani is divisive. Oh, not to mention the fact that he supports the anti-Semitic terrorist Hamas group and says that we should globalize the Intifada. And let's not forget, he's in favor of murdering babies in the womb right up until birth. That's who Zohran Mamdani is. And all of those ideas that he supports and celebrates are incredibly divisive. You see, I just explained why a person of the left, who Democrats and this network, MSNBC, embraces as a hero, I explained why he's divisive. Because of what he stands for, what he believes, what he promotes, his ideas. Did you notice when they said Charlie Kirk was divisive? And Katie Tur then asked her guest, why? Why is he divisive? Did you hear how they backed up that statement? Here, listen again.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign. And he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money. And really he has become, especially among younger people, right, one of the biggest voices that's on the right now.
Did you hear a position, an idea, anything that Charlie Kirk believes or stands for that can be described as divisive or polarizing or make him a lightning rod? Did you? He's a prominent voice. He's aligned with the president of the United States. Oh, well, that'll do it. He has a podcast, and he's been very successful raising money and galvanizing and organizing young people. So, of course, he's divisive. These people are awful, but I got to tell you something. Everything that you just saw from Katie Tur, not the worst thing you saw on MSNBC yesterday. And Katie Tur still has a job. What you're about to see actually got a person fired on MSNBC. Well, we say, what does it take to get somebody fired on MSNBC? Well, we've got our answer. And it came from not a liberal, not a Democrat, from an establishment rhino, never Trump Republican, someone who worked in the Bush administration, Matthew Dowd.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot. And there are a number of...
I don't know if you picked up on that, but Matthew Dowd was basically saying, what did Charlie expect? This is the kind of thing that's going to happen. He had it coming. I just want to be clear here. The most hateful, despicable thing that you heard in the media yesterday about Charlie Kirk did not come from a liberal left-wing Democrat. It came from a never Trump Bush Republican. I've been in this town for the last 10 years, Washington, D.C., during the Trump phenomenon. And I can tell you from personal experience that the angriest, most bitter, most vitriolic individuals in this town, when it comes to people like me and other people who support the president and his agenda, the worst that we get are from people like Matthew Dowd, people like Jonah Goldberg, people like David French, people like Bill Kristol. You know, the real Republicans, the real conservatives. Their bile is the worst that we have to deal with. And that's a perfect example. About an hour and a half after Matthew Dowd's words, MSNBC apologized for them. During our breaking news coverage of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Matthew Dowd made comments that were inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable. We apologize for his statements, as has he. Really? I haven't seen an apology. Have you? If maybe he put it on Blue Sky. It certainly didn't get the prominence during live coverage on the Peacock Network, nor did this PR statement. There's no place for violence in America, political or otherwise. Thanks for that, MSNBC. While you're at it, you do realize that you keep Al Sharpton on the payroll, right? If you looked into Al Sharpton's past, he's kind of been responsible for some political violence of his own. So forgive me for not taking your word on this, but as long as you keep paying Al Sharpton to be on the air, I think you're okay with certain kinds of political violence in America. About an hour or so after that, Variety reported that Matthew Dowd had been fired as an analyst on MSNBC. But let me be clear here about what the real takeaway is. Up until this moment, Matthew Dowd was an employee in good standing with MSNBC. They would turn to Matthew Dowd as a political analyst to explain to their viewers the Republican perspective. Let that sink in for a minute. When was the last time Matthew Dowd had any kind of relevance in American politics as a Republican or conservative in Washington, D.C.? You got to go back 20 years. You're telling me that MSNBC can't find one Republican analyst to put on the payroll who can actually say something in support of Donald Trump, or at the very least, to explain to their crazy viewers why Trump supporters and the Trump administration believe and act the way they do. You know, like a Trump whisperer. Listen, I know you guys don't like him, and I know you guys don't understand, but let me just explain where they're coming from. Let me at least give you their perspective so you don't, other them, dehumanize them, so you don't just sit here and call them fascists and Hitler and a threat to our democracy. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I upsetting the apple cart? I'm sorry. By suggesting that we actually explain the human, basic, fundamental humanity of the individuals you like to demonize every single day. Am I screwing up the business model for your network? Okay, I'll show myself out. You never see one person on MSNBC do that. But Matthew Dowd, he was getting a paycheck from them. Somebody who hates you and hates Trump and hates everybody who voted for him. I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and be so thankful that, oh, thank you for firing him. You should have never hired him in the first place. All right, now to some more elected officials. Elizabeth Warren here. She wasn't very happy that President Trump made a statement pointing out the violent, dangerous, dehumanizing rhetoric of the left. So what was her reasoned and rational response?
Oh, please. Right. Why don't you start with the President of the United States? Right? And every ugly meme he has posted and every ugly word.
Yeah, that's the taking the high road there, isn't it? As Charlie Kirk's widow is grieving. Honestly, Elizabeth Warren, if you don't like what the president said, why don't you say, you know what, guys, I know that you're in the news business, but today's not the day. If you want, maybe I'll show up on your Sunday show, but I'm going to let the family grieve in peace. No, we can't do that. Jen Psaki also very concerned about the president pointing out violent, dehumanizing rhetoric on the left. Understand that Donald Trump and his family have been called Hitler for a decade, and he has already suffered 2 assassination attempts, and now a friend of his has been slaughtered at the age of 31. So forgive him if he wants to point out the fact that by dehumanizing individuals and saying that because of what their political ideas are, they are a threat to the existence of our nation, that he's a little defensive and a little angry that you actually took one of us out. But Jen Psaki sees what the real problem here is. It's Donald Trump for noticing.
But he put out a 4-minute video, and I'm not going to play the video. I don't want to play the video. But there was a line at the end that I think I just wanted to raise and read. At the end of this 4-minute video, he says, "For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now." And obviously, there's a lot of rhetoric that is problematic. A lot of it is coming from one particular side and from one particular building. But what can be done? I fear when this is an escalation already in less than 24 hours of this shooting.
Yeah, I think historically presidents have looked for opportunities to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now we need a president that'll bring the country together and not try to further, divide us.
Yeah, he wasn't dividing us. He was actually bringing us together by pointing out what is dividing us, which is your rhetoric. And they don't even get that. By the way, did you notice something really important at the very beginning of this?
But he put out a 4-minute video, and I'm not going to play the video. I don't want to play the video. But
they're a news network. They're covering the story of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The president of the United States put out a 4-minute video from the Oval Office addressing the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And they're not going to play it for their viewers. They don't want to play it for their viewers. Oh, they'll quote one sentence from it, take it out of context, distort it, and then turn it into some talking point that they can use to suggest that the president is dividing us. But the last thing they're going to do is actually show their viewers the news, because they're not in the news business. They haven't been for a long, long time. J.B. Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois and has been making noise that he's going to run for president in 2028, he decided to chime in on the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the discussion over the left's political rhetoric in America. Let's see what he had to say.
My sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody. I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who did it. I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of political violence.
There you go. Charlie Kirk. So sad. I send my sympathy to the family who's in mourning, but let's face it, he had it coming because of January 6th. These are awful people. This morning on C-SPAN, they did their usual open telephone lines where people could call in and express their opinion about news and events. And yes, this is just a random sampling, but let's see what's going on out there in the hinterlands of people who watch MSNBC and CNN and spend their time on Blue Sky. What's on their mind?
Hi, good morning. Well, first I want to start out by sending to the Kirk family the same condolences and support that they sent other school shooting victims in the past. I hope that they get the exact same sympathy that they sent out for those people. And also I want to call out the great uniter, Trump, for go ahead and preemptively blaming the left and some liberal when we don't know who did this yet. And also I want to thank him for extending to Kirk the same reverence and support that he did for Melissa Hortman when she was shot. Like when he lowered the flags to half-mast, when he tweeted about her, when he called and was supportive for her. Oh, wait, he wasn't? The great uniter wasn't supportive of an assassination victim when it wasn't on his team? Wow, color me surprised. Also, I just want to point out that I want the same empathy for Mr. Kirk that he supported. Oh, wait, he thought empathy was weakness. He thought that some gun deaths were worth it for the Second Amendment. You know what? you can't prove him wrong because he proved himself right by being a victim of a school shooting and gun violence that he loves so much.
It's okay to be angry. It's okay. You have every right to be angry. Soak it in. Don Lemon, desperate for attention, took his camera to the streets and started asking New Yorkers about gun control after the shooting of Charlie Kirk.
You yelled at me.
I did.
Do you know Charlie Kirk?
No, I don't.
Charlie Kirk is the Turning Point USA. He's a very conservative right-wing activist. He was shot today at a college gathering in Utah and killed.
I'm disheartened by that because he's a human being. I don't condone the death or any killing of anyone. That's wrong.
Regardless of their political views.
Regardless of their political views, we're all humans.
What should we do about guns?
We definitely need to have gun control so that we can eliminate violence.
You think this will make a difference?
Absolutely.
You do?
I do, because the attention is here. I think and I hope that it will allow people to take it more seriously and do something about it.
Don Lemon's a joke, and you should laugh at him, and there's plenty of material.
Do you know Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, I do.
And what do you think of what happened to him?
You know, sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. I hate to celebrate someone's death, but when you talk about guns' rights and you talk about how much the Second Amendment matters to you and it impacts you, like, what do you expect? You know, sympathies to his family, but this is why we need gun control.
One of my friends said on social media, he died in a world that he wanted.
Yeah, he said it himself, right? There's a whole quote that's been floating around about like sacrifices were made for the Second Amendment to still exist, or something along those lines, right? It's an ad-lib, but yeah, this is what happens. You reap what you sow, and you know it's sad that someone died, but also, hey, you know.
What do you say to people who might say that you're unsympathetic and you need to be more human about it?
I don't know. Reread slavery, rewatch Roots. There are so many different eras of American history in America where worse things have happened to people. You know, and we've turned a blind eye. You want us to erase the Confederacy. You want us to erase all these different things. But why should I have more sympathy with someone that you don't know pain, really? If this is the worst thing you could think of, you don't understand what other people have gone through.
Okay, I can't take any more of the nervous laughter from that idiot, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste and a little bit of flavor of the direction that the left took yesterday. I know you don't enjoy it, but it's also one of the reasons why you come here. We watch this and digest it all and then give you little snippets so that you don't have to. And it's good to know what's being discussed over there. But hey, let's face it, Don Lemon has been fired from CNN, and he's got a Substack, and he's got a friend with a camera and his microphone on the streets of New York. It's meaningless. It's pathetic. It doesn't matter. Well, how about CBS News? Their morning show today. Former football star Nate Burleson, who now is one of the journalists, is that what they're calling it? He had former Speaker Kevin McCarthy on to talk about this.
Tony mentioned not everyone took to his words or his rhetoric. You know, at times they were offensive to specific communities. But with that said, this is not the time to focus on that. We are focused on this tragedy. Speaking of this tragedy, is this a moment for your party to reflect on political violence? Is it a moment for us to think about the responsibility of our political leaders and their voices and what it does to the masses as they get lost in misinformation or disinformation that turns in and spills into political violence?
I say both parties.
I just marvel at the editorial choices at these networks. This is a major network, is CBS News. And they decide that just 16 hours after the assassination of Charlie Kirk at the age of 31, they decide that the direction the conversation needs to take this morning is to bring in a Republican, the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and say, hey, a prominent Republican voice has been assassinated, murdered in cold blood at the age of 31. Is this a good time for you Republicans to watch your mouth so it doesn't happen again? I'm so glad You watch us here instead of watching them there. They don't deserve your attention other than the mocking, ridicule, and derision that we will deliver. And we will continue to do it. Unafraid, unbowed. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It wasn't an easy show to do. I appreciate all your support. I was trying to peek at your comments while I could. And thank you for that. And it looks like we've got some super chats coming through. So let's go ahead and grab those right now. Thank you. Oh, Angela, I love your new avatar. Well done, good and faithful servant. Who is that hugging Charlie? I can't make it out. Can you make that out, Kevin, on the picture? I can't make it out.
No, I can't tell.
Well, you just showed yourself.
Yeah, I had to.
That was a rare glimpse of Kevin. $5 super chat from Angela, praying for Erica and those precious babies. Daddy is with Jesus. Thank you, Charlie, for fighting the good fight. We will not be silenced. Jesus is Lord. Amen. Stumble Boots, $2. You are cool. Thank you for that. I love that, Clippy. Magno News, that's a new name. $10 super chat. Thank you for this live dedicated to Charlie Kirk. It's on us to take his speech further, keep it alive, and continue to fight for the truth. Fight, fight, fight. Thank you, Magno News. Welcome, and don't be a stranger. Angela with a $5 super chat. Larry, we are right there with you. Tears, anger, heartbreak. We just have to carry the torch, fight the good fight, and finish the race and turn to Jesus. Amen, Angela. That's exactly what needs to be done. $10 from Ball State alum. Thank you, Jeff. No lame jokes today. No pedantic quips today. I'm reflecting on Charlie and Andrew. Don't need to tell you my story regarding Andrew, but Charlie seems to be the real deal. He will be missed. Yeah, he still is the real deal. It's so hard to talk to him about him in past tense. So let's keep that up, shall we? He is Charlie. God's best friend with a £2 super chat. We are all Charlie, and I am a non-believer. Thanks. God's best friend. Appreciate it. Angela with a $5 super chat. Love the sinners, hate the sin. To all the people putting disrespectful comments in the chat, find a Bible, heed the warning of Isaiah 5:20, please. Oh, did we have some trolls in the chat today? Kevin? That's all right. That's fine. Let them do their thing. Tree 3 Climber. That's a new. Oh, I love that. Hummingbird. $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Tree 3 Climber. Appreciate it. God's best friend with £2. Like I said before, Trump's ear attacked the bullet. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, did you notice when Jabba the Hutt Pritzker was laying out all the political violence of recent years, he just skipped right over. He skipped right over Butler, Pennsylvania. Amazing. Thank you for that. God's best friend. Michelle Moore with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that very much. No comment. Just a little tip in the tip jar. Thank you, Michelle. That means a lot to us. Patricia Franklin with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Larry. God bless. Thank you, Patricia. Appreciate it. Angela again with a $2 super chat. Divisive if you're for Jesus, a hero if you're for evil. Yeah, I love that. In every newsroom in New York, it's just what did the New York Times headline? I think called him a provocateur. When you use the word provocateur, first of all, Charlie is not a provocateur. If you called Andrew a provocateur, I get that. You see, but the difference is Charlie just died from an assassin's bullet. So when you use the word provocateur, you are subliminally implanting the message that he was asking for it, that he provoked violence. They do this on purpose. Thank you. You're so right, Angela. Rosario Cicero. Love that microphone. $19.99. Wow, that's a very generous super chat. You forgot the most reprehensible rhino in the history of the planet, that being, Rick Wilson. I don't even think about him. Have you seen his ironclad prediction for the 2024 election featured on Megyn Kelly? I swear one could die laughing. I have seen that before, not on Megyn, but I've seen it. Yeah, he's a joke. He's a punchline. Rick Wilson is. Also, he's about that tall. Angela with $2. Guns don't kill, evil hearts do. Never give up the Second Amendment. Amen, Angela. Thank you. Big Iron 55, a $5 super chat. Ironic he died by the world he lived in. Where was Don's question when gay community was dying from AIDS? Oh, a very keen observation. Yeah, it only goes one way in certain political spheres. Thank you for those super chats, everyone. We also over on Rumble, where we still haven't been able to integrate Rumble super chats onto our stream here for some reason. We have a $12 super chat from Andrew Brogdon. Thank you. Not college age, 32 to 35, has military training. Trust me, body language, personal experience, 6 years, NCO. Thank you for your service, Arthur. You're talking about the photograph of the person in question. You don't think that's a college age person? Has military training, trust me, body language, personal experience. You think his posture suggests military training? All right.
Looks pretty college age to me.
Yeah. Well, Arthur thinks it's 32 to 35. All right. And then we also have a monthly Rumble supporter today from JF Case 1068. Thank you. Appreciate that support. And I appreciate you guys being there on a tough day today. We're in this together. Stick with us. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. In the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.